Nole Nation, welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. As always, a little bit below me today, it's Jen Santee, aka Jen Santee 1890 on X. You can find her there as always. You can find me at the Renegade Report right here on YouTube and Renegade Report 1 on X. But today's special guest, NFL veteran, FSU legend, defensive back, Bryant McFadden joins the show. This is the second time we've been able to get him on. Super excited to get to talk to him about the Florida State Seminoles coming off just a dominant performance at the Combine. We had 12 guys invited. Of course, he covers college football and NFL for CBS Sports, has an amazing podcast, All Things Covered, with Patrick Peterson, another amazing NFL defensive back. How's it going, man? Thanks for joining us.
It's going great. It's going great. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invite once again. How you guys doing? Everybody good?
Doing good.
I can't complain. I think Jen has had a eventful day. She's got teenagers and she's got baby girls and baby boys, so she's got a little bit more on her plate. I'm just worried about thumbnails and and getting great people like you on the show. So it's been pretty good on my end, anyways.
Yeah, doing good, doing good. Just glad thankful for DoorDash. That's all I can say. They got me my cord I needed, so here I am. Just a couple minutes late.
It's unreal what you can do with Postmates and DoorDash and all the different things nowadays. Like, man, back in the day, it was a 30-minute trip to town or whatever the case may be. But nowadays, you got it all at your fingertips.
Well, I'm a big Drizzly person, and Drizzly now was bought out by Uber Eats. So I'm very upset by this because Drizzly's prices were way better. They were way quick. It's a booze delivery. So I'm just... Like Drizzly? It would be here. Before. Oh my gosh, it was great. It'd be there in like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And they come to your door like as soon as they get your ID the first time. Like as long as you're the one at the door, they just hand it to you, and it's the quickest thing in the world. It's so easy. And so anyway, yeah. Oh yeah, and it'll be there in like 20 minutes. But
wow,
that's okay.
If that was around, so many DUIs could have been saved. So many beer runs in the middle of the night. I was wondering what that was when you said Drizzly. My podunk living behind. I don't have cool services like that out here in the woods. But anyways,
I wish I had never found it because it's cost me a pretty penny. I can tell you that.
I bet. Cheaper than a DUI at least. But anyways, we got our guy Bryant McFadden again joining us. How awesome was it to see the Noles just absolutely representing at the combine down there? You got a dozen Noles. I think it was about 8 guys performing in just pretty much every day except for Sunday, which they kind of switched it up. We only had offensive linemen on Sunday, but the first 3 days just was Noles just killing it over there in Indianapolis.
It was great to see. The combine is usually a big time reflection on the season. You know what I mean? When you factor in guys going to the combine and excelling and balling out, it usually tells you they came from a good program and they pretty much had a real good year. And I think that's a big time a sign from what we watched, being Florida State fans, of an outstanding year that was halted beyond their control. But when you factor in what they did from the month of August, to December, was play high level football. And they did so with high level players, pro players. That was something that I echoed, going back to Florida State in 2023 of March, getting ready for spring football. I felt like we had a bunch of individuals, bunch of players that had Sunday-like futures, guys that were going to play in the National Football League, and not just the eligible players, but young guys as well. And what we saw when you go to the regular season play, with those guys live up to the billing. You know what I mean? Live up to the billing. So I wasn't surprised to see the big time performances that we saw from our guys that were invited to the combine that had an opportunity to perform. That was what I was expecting. That's why I felt like, these guys going to showcase what they did in helmet, in pads, in shorts, in Indy. And I'm so excited for these guys because it's a great sign when you talk about being able to put another light on the university. And then it brings more attention to what the current group of guys are currently doing in Tallahassee as well.
Without a doubt. Preseason, there's a lot of conversations. We've talked about it on different spaces and stuff. And that was the kind of talk, was maybe 6, up to possibly 10. Some people were like super rose-colored glasses like myself saying, like, look, there's 10, 12 guys on this team. And luckily it played out that way. And like you said, it goes to show the development and what kind of season you had. You don't get 10, 12 guys at the combine without a great season. Even if you have 10 to 12 guys who maybe will go on to play in the NFL, to get 3/4 of the scouts, to get the eyeballs, on that film to get into the combine, you pretty much have to have a pretty good season. And when you look at it, I think Michigan had 19. It made perfect sense as you go down through there and look at it. First rounders is the one big stat that people look at. A lot of these recruiting people and stuff, they really look at first round talent. That's how they come up with their recruiting guidelines and stuff like that. Not so much how good you are in high school, but your chances of being a first rounder by the time you graduate college and things of that nature. So a pretty big stat, the more first rounders you can get. I think we could probably push 3. What are you thinking there? Jared Verse obviously being the kind of no doubter, but Braden Fisk, you've got Trey Benson, and you've got Keon Coleman, all there who are possible guys that could get that call if the right team likes what they see.
Yeah, I think, realistically, maybe 2 guys. Verse is the for sure first rounder. And then you can, Keon Coleman may be a first rounder as well. Didn't run the 40 time that he probably wanted to run, but yet and still everything else he did was phenomenal. He did a great job catching the football, and he has an opportunity to kind of improve that 40 when it comes to his pro day. And then you factor in Braden Fisk. I mean, you talk about a guy, that has been shooting up draft boards. Braden Fisk has been unbelievable. Great year for us. Transfer, played outstanding football, good guy on and off the football field, but went to the Senior Bowl and just really surprised a lot of people. Not us, because we watched him, right? We watched him play in and play out, game in and game out. But when he went to Senior Bowl playing against some of the best that college football had to offer and just dominated, his individual reps, and then showcase a motor that is like the likes of Max Crosby for the Raiders, a guy who's never hitting the off button. He's always on. That's what he showcased. And then when he went to the combine, it was like, okay, can he confirm what we watched in Mobile? Can he confirm what we watched down in Tallahassee? He didn't just confirm, he surprised even more people. When you talk about the running ability, the athleticism, the explosive nature that he has within his skill set. And because of that, I think, when people talk about guys that could get into the first round, I think he's a name you have to consider. You have to put in that conversation because he has hot tape when it comes to in-game action. But then he went to the combine and he just solidified all the confirmation that he needed to showcase in front of all execs, coaches, and things like that. So I love this class. And I say this all the time. I know people always highlight first round draft picks and second round draft picks, but quality teams, championship like teams, they are really established in the middle rounds. When you factor in teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco, he was a late round draft pick. I think he went in the 6th round. When you look at some of the other guys, young guys that are thriving in their team, L'Jarius Sneed, he wasn't a first rounder, anything like that. Championship team have guys that they get in the mid round and they flourish, because for you to get to that level and to win it all, you just can't depend on your first rounders. You got to have guys that are key contributors by any means necessary that you were able to draft in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds. That's how it works, because those are bonus-like points. Those are bonus picks, because we all hope and believe if you go in the 1st, 2nd round, especially maybe 3rd round as well, at some point in time, you should play, right? That's the given. You might not be a day 1 starter, but at some point in time, we need to see you on the football field. But when you're a 4th or 5th or 6th rounder and you're out there and you're contributing and you're doing so in a consistent way, now you're really cooking with gas. That's when you get to play January football. That's when you get an opportunity to compete for championships. And that's where great teams are really established. And when you talk about our talent level, it's not just top heavy. Man, we have quality throughout any potential round. You can go get a guy from Florida State and he can be a contributor. A guy like Trey Benson can be a starter his rookie campaign. You know what I mean? A guy like Keon Coleman can be a starter. Braden Fisk can be a starter. Don't forget about Johnny Wilson, who really had a great combine as well. 4.53, right? What about Ronaldo Green? Ran 4.49. Great hot tape, man-to-man coverage. Went to the All-Star game and balled out. Fabian Lovett is another name, right? I mean, we have Akeem Dent, who didn't get an invite, but yet and still had real good tape as well. I'm excited for these guys, man. And this is something that we've been watching for quite some time. And I'm just happy to see everything come to fruition for these players because they deserve it. They definitely deserve it.
Yeah, I'm glad you went that way with it because I could not agree more. And I kind of disagree with the connotation and the notion that first round draft status is kind of the be all end all when you're talking about these recruits and building the program. Because, yeah, you're only going to have so many of those first round guys in any given year, period. Like you said, it's the second, third, fourth rounders. When you look back at like the 2013 FSU team, that whole team, it was all second, third, first round, like the whole entire team. And yeah, you got a couple first rounders, but you've got to have those top 120 guys. To me, that's the most important. And Florida State has, dang near 10 of them when you go down the line. You name the guys. Jerry Jones, I mean, coming out running a 4.38.
4.39. Yeah, 4.38.
Yeah.
I forgot about Jerry and Jones. It's like I said earlier, I wasn't surprised because I watched these guys play. I wasn't surprised. You know what I mean? They showcased the athleticism that you needed to have. They showcased the heart, the want to, the willingness, and they love the game. And that's why a lot of these guys who had, draft grades a year ago decided to come back. And don't forget, what about Jordan Travis? He's going to get drafted, right? Unfortunately for Jordan, because of the injury, he wasn't able to go to the combine and perform because I felt like if he had an opportunity to perform, if it was healthy, he probably could have ran in the 4.5s or 4.4s, which would really, boost his leverage. But he's going to get drafted regardless of the injury. So that's another name you could throw into the conversation.
Yeah, really
curious.
I
was actually going to ask about that. Yeah. So what are you guys' thoughts on Jordan Travis? What do you think he goes to in the draft? Do you think this is like maybe a 5th, 6th round type thing, or?
I say, barring the injury, Jen, anywhere between 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
Now I've seen some highlights of him working out. He's removed from the cast or the boot. So he's doing some things when it comes to his lower extremities working out, which is a bright sign. We're in the month of March right now. In regards to him being healthy and ready to go and on the grass during mini camps and OTAs, I don't know if that's a realistic option. Medically, I don't know. But I think he will be clear at some point in time once the season starts, if not right before the season. And if you're an organization, when you talk about a kid that just does things the right way, right? A hard worker, not a distraction, not a me guy, a selfless guy. He is your player. I mean, he was the best. Think about this, right? And I've had this discussion with a lot of, other NFL analysts, college analysts, as we get ready for the draft, like all of us when in the media we're doing. They're talking about Drake May and how prolific he is and his ceiling in the National Football League, potentially being a top 3 draft pick or a top 4 draft pick. I said, listen, Drake May is a good football player, but the reality is he wasn't even the best quarterback in the ACC.
Yep.
He was not the best quarterback in the ACC. And should that detour organizations from drafting him as high as they would like? I'm not here to say that, but all I'm giving you is the facts. The best quarterback in the ACC was Jordan Travis. Now, he got injured, didn't get a chance to really cap off his collegiate career the way he wanted to, but he was the best quarterback in the ACC. So that tells everyone that this is a guy who can ball, who can really play football. And I don't know if there's another quarterback in college football, clearly in the ACC, that has grown like Jordan Travis. When you look at Jordan Travis, when Willie Taggart was there, early on when Mike Norvell got there, to the player that we watched the last 2 seasons, night and day. He wanted to change positions, right? Coach Norvell said, no, you're going to stay here. You're going to compete, win ball games for us, and also be in that Heisman conversation. And guess what? All of those things came to fruition. He was in the Heisman conversation. He won ball games, was outstanding. So I see that as a potential mark for him round-wise, maybe in the 4th or 5th round. And, something similar to like we saw, think about this, Hendon Hooker, right?
Yeah.
Had a heck of a collegiate career, got injured, got drafted to the Detroit Lions in a situation where they didn't need him right now because Jared Goff is their guy. He's their franchise quarterback. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. But if you're Hendon Hooker, you get a chance to learn from an experienced guy that has played high-level football and soak up everything that he has to offer on and off the football field. And when you get healthy, showcase to the organization, like, I'm a guy you can rely on when need be, because backup quarterbacks are super important. Ask the Cleveland Browns.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes, the starter is important, but the backup guy, he is important as well, because a backup quarterback given the opportunity based on injury to play, either he can save your season or tank it, put it in the dump, right? And those are guys that at some point in time, because it's a long season and it's a physical game, they may be called on to, hey, we don't need you just for one game. Man, we need you for 5 or 6. And you got to find a way to weather the storm to keep us afloat until our guy gets back. So that could be an ideal like situation for Jordan Travis, similar to what we saw with Hendon Hooker a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say, I could see a team that, Jordan would be the fit for, right? Maybe teams panic on quarterback picks because they have a tendency to do that, right? I mean, teams have a tendency to panic pick on quarterbacks. And I could see, even with the injury in the 5th round, if the team that he would fit in that system perfectly, comes up. Because I think it would be not only, like you said, as a backup quarterback, he is such a selfless player. Talk about a team motivator. And to be honest, let's be real, it would be a great story for the NFL team that drafts him, right? That's going to be a huge story. The media is going to love it. It's going to get a lot of attention, especially even for a 5th, 6th round pick, right? Media is going to eat it up. So yeah, I definitely think he's going to get drafted. I don't think he goes to an undrafted player. I just don't think so.
Yeah, no chance. No chance. I'd be really disappointed. I say no chance. There's absolutely a possibility of it happening.
Yeah, there is. I mean, we've seen other things happen. I didn't think they'd leave a Power 5 undefeated out. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I got to throw that in there every once in a while.
Yeah, I said that same thing on this show after Jen said that we'd probably end up getting left out. Yeah, it would be wrong, but there's a chance there. But yeah, going on what you were saying, Brian, I look back and I see a guy like, even Russell Wilson. And am I saying he's going to have that career? But no. But if you remember when Russell Wilson was coming out, he was, he's too short. And he's done a lot of running. And I believe he was the 3rd round pick coming out. And even he was maybe a little high when he came out. They had just played Matt Flynn, like $80 million or something, which back in that time was good money, was big money. And like you're talking about, they brought him in for a backup, possibly could become a starter down the road, but they didn't bring Russell Wilson in like where it's pressure, like this guy's got to start. They were going to go with Flynn for a couple of years. So yeah, and especially being a young guy, at a certain extent, NFL quarterback, you meet the qualifications and it's like a numbers game. There's only 32 of these jobs in the world. So it's like, we've all seen the busts and the guys that everybody had pegged as the best ever that didn't pan out. And then we've seen, the Russell Wilsons of the world. So I absolutely believe it's worth it for somebody to get him, whether it be 4th, 5th, or 6th round. Definitely get him in the building and see what he can do, because like you said, you've seen the growth year over year, and to be the best quarterback in the ACC means something. You saw it with Lamar Jackson. You saw it with, countless guys down the line the past 10, 20, 30 years, going back to Phillip Rivers and all these guys. It means something for sure.
No doubt.
But, okay, what's next? What haven't we talked about? Go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, somebody in the chat said they just read an article that the Steelers are eyeing Jordan Travis.
Hey, man, I would love that to happen. One thing I can say about Pittsburgh, they love Florida State Seminoles. And
yes, they
usually
do.
When they go draft a guy from Tallahassee, they do pretty well in Pittsburgh. They do pretty well in Pittsburgh. When you talk about some of the guys like myself, Lawrence Timmons, Chris Hope, guys that, got drafted to Pittsburgh from the Steelers that had a real good career there in Pittsburgh, man. So
Did you and Vince overlap too much?
I forgot about Vince Williams.
Yes, I was about to say, yeah.
Vince Williams as well. So
did y'all get to play together a little bit? I can't remember. I know it's pretty close.
I played with Chris my rookie year, and then I played with Lawrence me and Lawrence won my second Super Bowl, his first together in 2008. Awesome, Super Bowl 43. Was it 43? Yeah, Super Bowl 43, if I'm not mistaken. Me and Lawrence, we were on a team together when we won that championship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if Vince got to play with you or not.
No, I didn't play with
time.
Vince though. I didn't play with
Okay.
Vince.
Yeah. Vince, man, he was one of my favorite players at Florida State. Really underappreciated, and to see him get to have that success in the league after just kind of pounding, similar to a DeMarcus Walker. Just two of my favorite players of all time. Just seeing what they did,
Yeah.
and like you said, getting in Pittsburgh, and he's talked about it a lot. It's like he loved it. It was the best place for him, that he was able to just really develop and become that dude. But yeah. As far as other guys, I think we've touched the majority of everybody going in the draft. Is there anybody else you're curious about as far as people going in the draft throughout this class, Jen?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everybody. I mean, I feel like I might be leaving someone out, but I'm going to say no right now. Kalen DeLoach, do we think he's going to get picked up?
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
How we leave DeLoach out? We got to talk about DeLoach before.
DeLoach had another great combine performance. I'm sorry for all our former players. I'm forgetting a few names that balled out because there was so many of them.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Tatum Bethune is another guy as well, man. It's like it was, man, we're deep. We were deep in Indy. Oh yeah, but DeLoach, man. That 4.47, right? Woo. When you talk about just getting drafted, Verse, Coleman, these are all guys I believe will get drafted for sure. Verse, Coleman, Fisk, DeLoach, Jones, Benson, Wilson, Green, Travis.
Oh man.
That's 9. I think Dent is going to get drafted as well because I think he's going to really run well at the pro day. He didn't get a chance to get an invite to Indy, but I think he's going to get drafted. That's 10.
Yeah, he was just hurt.
Anybody else I'm missing? That's 10 guys.
I know Tatum Bethune. He's going to be.
Did I mention Bethune?
He's going to be. I don't think you did. I think that would be the 11th, and then there'd be 1 or 2 more. Trying to think of the guys that are borderline.
Well, that's 11 guys. Forgive me if I'm forgetting a name. Hit us in the chat box as well.
Yes, please. Yeah, let us know.
But long story short, it's a lot.
Fabian Lovett.
Not Lovett. No question. Yeah. Lovett.
No, he said Lovett's in. I just realized, boom, I got the list right here. So we can go through it just like this. Jared Verse, he's drafted. Keon Coleman, drafted. You said Fisk, drafted. Johnny Wilson, drafted. Trey Benson, drafted. Jaheim Bell, that's one we left out. Drafted.
Forgot about him. Dang. Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. We at 13 now?
Yep. Jarian Jones, drafted. Renardo Green, drafted. Fabo's one that people think will get dropped that I always thought was a lock. Drafted. DeLoach, drafted. Tatum Bethune is maybe the one who's iffy with Dent. So that's 11 locks, and Dent and Bethune leaves them kind of right there. But I think, I don't know. What's
George,
the odds
you might
they
end
don't
up being right. You might end up being right.
We'll see.
Wild.
Man, listen, it's a reflection of a successful season. Because when you don't have a successful season, you don't have a lot of guys getting drafted. Point blank. To win ball games in college football, you gotta have good players. You know what I mean? And that's a reflection. And Florida State fans, man, should be proud. Because we've had experiences in past years where it was a limit in players at Indy. It was a limit when it came to, hey, such and such drafted to this organization from Florida State. We didn't hear that a lot. So now we're starting to see a change in the trajectory of where the program is going. And if you want to see a bright program, you usually see a program that's getting guys drafted. Yep. Think about this. Let's keep it real. When you look at Nick Saban in his Alabama heyday, filling up the draft year in and year out. You look at Kirby Smart over the last few years, especially winning championships. Georgia players getting drafted everywhere, right? I mean, look at Michigan. They just won that championship game. They had 18 guys, if not mistaken. That was the number at the combine. Yep. So the combine, the NFL draft, is nothing but a reflection of what these teams did in college football on Saturdays, preferably. So, I mean, fans should be excited, and it's not going to stop. You ride this wave. You keep this going back to Bobby days. The late great Bobby Bowden, who coached me at Florida State, was always in the draft from Florida State at the combine. You know what I mean? So now what we're seeing is that course coming right back to Tallahassee, because this is another up and coming year when you factor in some of the current group of guys who have an opportunity to get drafted, barring staying healthy. We got another handful of guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, what Jen I think was alluding to earlier is I've been pretty vocal predicting that Mike Norvell is going to break the 3-year draft record set by Jimbo Fisher. If you remember 2012, we had 11 or 12 guys drafted. It was EJ Manuel's senior year. Everybody thought that was the national title team. We came up short. We lost a couple games, and the very next year is Jameis's freshman year where he goes off. We win the national championship. So it went like 12, 7, and then another 11 got drafted in 2014. You ended up with 29 guys. I think I got the numbers
got
messed
drafted,
up.
right? That 2013 championship team, the entire team got drafted at some point in time.
Yep.
All 22 starters.
And the special teams guys. It was wild.
And a few backups, because remember, Jalen Ramsey wasn't even a starter on that team.
True freshman on the national championship team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was unreal. But I think Mike Norvell has a real chance to do it just because of what we've talked about. So we've covered the guys' performances at the combine, heading to the draft, and now here's where we get to preview a little bit of the future. We're going to do more offense, kind of is what I labeled it, but we can get into all of it. When you look at the guys that went in the draft this year from Florida State versus the guys that are making up the team now and going forward, the 3-star versus 4-star and kind of the level of recruit, raw material, whatever you want to call it, get your hands on, it has been a huge uprising. On this past team, the 2023 title team, it was a 41% blue chip ratio. There was 26 blue chips total on the whole team. Well, they brought in 27 in this class, in just the 24 class. And then when you look where all the blue chips on this team came from, the majority of those came from the 23 class. So it's really unreal. The majority of all the blue chips that Mike Norvell has signed has been the past couple of years. But even this year, as we look forward and we do this offensive preview of the spring, the guys that make up this team, the actual core of this team are high school guys from those portal years or those terrible years during COVID in 2020 and 2021. So it's pretty awesome to see. And then into 2022, when you look at guys like Josh Farmer and Robert Scott and Darius Washington that Mike Norvell was able to get at the very beginning, who were these 3-star, not much about it, no big highfalutin recruits or anything like that. But through the development of the program, they have become all ACC performers. They have become draft prospects. It's a beautiful thing to see. Of course, DJU comes in. You're able to add Roydell Williams, Jalen Brown, all these big-time recruits from Bama. And I know I'm throwing a lot out there. I promise I'm going to get to a question at the end of it. But the talent, it's just gone to another level, and that's a big theme for this offense and this football team heading into 2024. And I'm super excited with DJU, Roydell, and stuff. Like I said, what are you the most excited about when you look at this team headed into offense? I guess we can just start there, and I can kind of pick your brain because I've got ADHD, man. I got a million thoughts and questions I want to ask you, but
for me, the thing that I'm elated about the most is seeing who's going to be our guys this year, right? Last year, and the position that I'm really targeting with my talking point is the wide receivers, the pass catchers, right? A year ago, we knew Johnny Wilson as a guy. We knew he was a guy, right? When we got Keon Coleman from Michigan State, if you were a fan of college football and you watch college football, you knew he was a legit guy, right? He just didn't have that stage because Michigan State was, an inconsistent team. But given the opportunity, you saw his individual skill set as a guy who oh boy, he can take over a game. And of course, he showed all of us that. When you lose those two type guys who we just mentioned will get drafted, anywhere between rounds 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, depending on how it works out. That's a huge piece of production that we don't have, and those were experienced productive players, right? So now, who is going to be our guys at the wide receiver position? Because having an experienced player in DJU at the quarterback position is a plus, but quarterbacks, they're only as good as their pass catchers. And it's their job to make pass catchers look better than what they are. But it helps quarterbacks when they have guys that they can rely on. Jordan Travis is an experienced quarterback, just like DJU is. He had experienced playmakers that he relied on. And then when you throw in Jaheim Bell, who was another for real guy coming from South Carolina, and then it was like we didn't have no concerns. If you go back to March of 2023, as we got ready for the spring, we had no concerns about who's going to catch passes from Jordan Travis. We already know, like, oh, no, we good. Like, we deep. That position is deep. We're still deep, but there's a lot of question marks about who is going to be the wide receiver one for us. Who's going to be this guy? Who we going to, 3rd and 8? We need a first down. Who DJU is going to go to? Like, who Coach Norvell is drawing up a play for? If you go back and look at the first game a year ago against LSU, right? He drew up plays for Keon Coleman. Both touchdowns were plays that were dialed up for number 4 that he received. Well, he had 3 touchdowns that game, if I'm not mistaken. Well, heck, 3 or 2. But I know 2 of them were like, this is where we're going. And we believe our guy is better than their guy. So we don't care if he looks like he's covered. We're still throwing him the football. Johnny Wilson had that same, skill set. Yeah, 50-50 balls, we're still throwing it to him, which is important. So for me, when you look at some of the wide receivers, Hakeem Williams, South Florida kid from my area, potentially we know what he has. We just got to see it. And we know he can deliver, but we need to see it consistently. When you look at Potier, when you look at Williamson, Jacobs, I think Jacobs is from Vero area. I really like Jay. I think Jacobs can go. I think Jacobs can really, really go. He showed a few signs here and there playing in mop-up duty a year ago as a true freshman. But
he's got that it factor. He's gonna be a good one.
And don't forget about some of the true freshmen. I just saw BJ Gibson and Fryer on the squat rack, like putting up grown man weight, and they just got to campus. You know what I mean? 400 plus, and then LaWayne McCoy as well. So in regards, and forgive me if I'm forgetting some names at the wide receiver position, but that's the thing that I'm excited to see unfold before our eyes. Like, the spring is an opportunity for all of us to kind of get any little bits and pieces of what is happening, to also see if you're able to attend any of the scrimmages of the spring game. Like, oh yeah, he's going to be our guy. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm the most excited to see offensively. Like, who is going to emerge to be the next Johnny Wilson, guys that can win 50-50 balls? Who's going to be our next Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell? And granted, we're bringing in some experience at the tight end position, but it's more about the wide receivers for me.
I love that, man. And you hit the nail on the head. Well, my best way to put it is we're back to 2022. Like you said, last year, we knew who our guys were. 2022 is the year you bring in Deuce Spann. You bring in Johnny Wilson. You bring in 4 wide receivers. You bring in guys out of high school, and just you go from having like one of the worst wide receiver groups to just all of a sudden being one of the best in the ACC. And then you get the second year where it all came to fruition. The difference is, and you threw out all the names.
I forgot about Douglas too as well. I forgot Douglas.
Ja'Kai Douglas. Yep.
Yeah. I forgot about Douglas.
He's another 2020 guy. He was in that transition COVID class that Norvell brought in. And you add his brother, Jalen Lucas, who is a running back, who's like one of the best returners in the nation and also can play in that slot. But that's the difference from here in 2022. You've got studs all over the place. You've got Hakeem Williams, who they're throwing in Keon Coleman highlight packages because they can't tell the difference in the dude's a true freshman. You've got all those names you threw out there. Camden Fryer, man, I mean, people are thinking he's like this, slot guy from Clemson, the guy who was a walk-on and worked his way up and all this stuff. Just the
You mean the one that killed us every year? The one that killed us every
receiver, year? Yeah. Yes, like that, but that isn't him. He is a dude. Yeah. He can play outside.
He comes from a football family also.
And he has that.
Yeah, he comes. That means something. Like, when you come from a football family, it's instilled in you. The work ethic, the want to, you know what I mean? The competitive feel, you're born with that. You see it. So that's important as well. And what I'm loving the most when I look at Florida State football, and especially, as I said, the reflection of the draft, we have a lot of players that love football. That's so important. That's so important.
And
because
Spiradix just took mine. Spiradix took mine. Was Malik Benson. Like
I forgot about from Alabama.
That kid's gonna be wild.
Yes.
It's gonna be so good.
I forgot.
And then he comes in and takes it.
I forgot about Malik Benson, who can really run. He has some he had some burners. So these are the names that we're all talking about, like who's going to do this, who's going to do that, or do what. What I would love to see, all of this is answered throughout spring. And then when spring is over, we kind of already know, like similar to what we saw the last 2 years. You talked about the 2022 spring where kind of like, oh shoot, Johnny Wilson gonna be a player for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a guy who, we're gonna see, and we saw it. So Malik Benson, man, from Alabama, man, I think he didn't get a chance to really showcase what he can do a year ago, being a JUCO transfer. But this is a money year for him. This is a money year for him. He's a guy that could be a pro player for us. You know what I mean? So because he has that type talent.
He's fast.
Do y'all remember
He's real fast.
Like Jameis's first spring game? Because I just will never forget Jameis' first spring game, because you saw him and you said, all right, we've got something here. Like this kid, this is unreal. And so I think sometimes you can watch spring games, and sometimes you don't, like, the lights are too, they're freshmen or, whatever. They're not, there's some dust there, right? But like sometimes you see certain kids in the spring game and you just go, wow. And that for me, was Jameis Winston. And I want to say running back. Oh my God, his name it's not Dalvin Cook, because of course Dalvin, but the other one.
I remember Trey Benson had a real good spring 2 springs ago.
He did. Kid from Mississippi. Oh my God, I cannot believe his name.
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers, yes. Yeah. So like I will never forget, it was like Cam Akers spring game and Jameis for me. When I watched them, I was like, who was the high schooler having to block Cam Akers? I want to know. I want to know the same thing for Cam Davis. I need to know that. I need to know what high school kid said. Their coach looked at them and said, I need you to go block that kid. And that, if I was in high school, I'd be like, I'm not doing that, especially not with Cam Davis. But so just those spring game performances, sometimes you see them and they just jump out at you. And those are the two that I'll never forget. And let's see what we get this year, because I'm excited to see it. I really am.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great year. It's a great opportunity. Spring is always fun, because if you're a diehard college football fan, this is like your season until the season starts. But seeing some, questions get answered from a real good year a year ago, I'm excited. And we have talent. And this is where you create the foundation for a championship-like team right now. And it doesn't start just when spring practices start. It starts off-season workouts. You know what I mean? All hands on deck mentality. Everyone is working to get better. I remember Coach Andrews, when I was there, he used to always tell us, man, your job is to get 2% better a day. 2%. That's not asking a lot. 2%. If you can achieve that, you will be a hell of a player when it's all said and done. And, seeing some things and hearing some things from off-season workouts with Tour of Duty, these guys were getting after it. And then when you look at what they were doing in the weight room, listen, that is so important. That is so important. The weight room is so important. It's not just about the strength that you establish when you're working out. It's about the mental confidence that is also established. When you know you are stronger, when you know you are faster, when you put on your uniform. And if you want to see what a pro player look like, I'm telling you right now, look at how a guy looks in his uniform. Is his uniform fitting him? Like he barely can get it on. And when you see pro players, you guys been watching football long enough, you can watch a guy in his uniform and say, oh, he looks like he need to be on Sunday. It starts in the weight room. When you got young freshmen,
Atomic and Sue busting out of that thing. I don't think you ever have one that fit.
No question. So when you got young guys that are coming into your program that have already have some type of regimen in the weight room, and now you're seeing it transition to the football field, that's when you cooking with gas. So that is a part of the foundation when you're trying to reach a championship like goal. It's not just about spring practices. What we see is about the offseason workouts that lead up to the spring practices, what you're doing in tour duty, what you're doing in the weight room. Do they got to beg you to go in the weight room? You know, do they have to say here and say, hey, man, you got to be here. You got to be on time. Do you have guys that are straggling in late, or you got guys that are there early, already warming up, already getting it going? I know when I used to be there, we used to work out during the week. And you know what we used to do on Saturdays? Me and a few other guys, we would go to the Leach Center and load up and get it in on days that we were not supposed to work out, wasn't a requirement, because we love the game. I mean, we're college athletes. Your job is to go to school and play whatever your sport is. That's it. That is a great thing, by the way. And nowadays, you're getting financial opportunities as well. So you just do your schoolwork, work out. That's what the offseason consists of. If you're not getting bigger, if you're not getting stronger, if you're not getting faster, that's a you problem.
Facts, man. You got me fired up. And I don't know if you've seen Destin Hill, another wide receiver that we would have to talk about.
Listen, I forgot. I'm sorry. I don't have the entire roster in front of me. I have a few days, but Destin Hill, sophomore, remember, I think he didn't really get a lot of opportunities, but I think he has an opportunity as well to show up. He's a talented guy. And the thing I love about his story, and I had an opportunity to talk to him, I think it was last spring. I said, this is a very, very special place for you, because when you were going through everything you were going through, when you had to wait, Coach Novell and the university never turned their back on you. They waited it out. You know how some programs, when they see you going through something and not knowing if that would ever get cleared up for you to be able to help their program, what they do? Oh, man.
Give away your spot.
We're going to take this scholarship. We can't hold it for you. Coach Novell.
Or you got to go JUCO. You got to go do this.
Yeah. But they held on and say, no, man, we're going to ride with you through this storm, because we know the sun is coming. And that's a good thing. That's why I say, I don't care what you're in, right? I don't care if you're in athletics. I don't care if you're in entertainment. I don't care if you're in finances. I don't care whatever it is, whatever your field is. If you're a good person, good things happen to you. Good things happen for you. And for us, we have a coach that's a good dude that does things the right way. And you shouldn't be surprised when you see good results, because just the Destin Hill saga, the way how he handled that and say, no, man, we're going to stay with this young kid. Regardless, we're going to stay with him. And whenever he is cleared to go, we got a spot for him. That tells you a lot.
It really does. One thing I want to say, though, is yes, us that love college football, this is our season. This is our time for the spring games and all the practices and stuff. But for some fan bases, this is their only time. This is their only wins. The off-season wins, the off-season practices, the off-season, the spring game is their only big win of the season. I get it. And then once, games actually, you have to play them on the field, then you start losing. I'm not going to say who I'm discussing, but I just had to make that note.
It's only fair. It's only right.
Off-season champs.
I had to. I mean, everything I say is true, except for everything that isn't. That's all I'm going to say. There you go.
That's right. Only on days that end in Y. But no, yes. I love where you're going with that. And, one thing that we've seen is all these coaches quitting and people upset that the kids have the leverage. And you spoke on it, how they're able to have opportunities and really be able to focus just on football without having to worry about where a meal's coming. They got a check coming. So those are all great things. But if you've got a coach like Mike Norvell, if you've got a player personnel guy like Derek Ray, the way Florida State runs their operation, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're kicking kids out on their butt and things like that. It's done the right way. It's a beautiful culture and everything they've got going on. But in one of my posts I brought up today that I mentioned, it's like, if you're not producing, if you're not part of that, if you're not one of the guys that's in the voluntary workouts, if you're not hyped up in the squat party, if you're not an FSU guy, you don't stick around. With the portal and the ability for guys to leave and things like that is really enhanced the ability to keep the guys you want. And it's one thing I loved about Norvell's strategy when it comes to high school and stuff. He doesn't have to sign 25, 30 guys every year just to keep up and make sure he has 85 scholarships, because the portal is there. We've had 18 guys exit, 18 coming in. You're basically able to rotate the bottom of that thing, and it's beautiful. Like, when you look at the 2022 class, Kentron Portier, Ja'Kai Douglas, Lawrence Toafili, Robert Scott, Darion Williamson, DJ Lundy, and our punter, Alex Mastromano, that's all that's left. And those guys are all major contributors. You go to the 21 class, Destin Hill, who is actually part of the 23 class, but Patrick Payton, Byron Turner Jr., Kevin Knowles, Joshua Farmer, Shaheem Brown, Bryson Estes, Joshua Burrell. These are all, like, if they're not starting and a big part of the team, they're a Josh Burrell, who is like a guy that wins all the effort awards, like has sacrificed and moved positions and done all these amazing things. So yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to see that talent grow higher and higher and higher, and I couldn't be more excited about it. But we haven't spent too much time on running back yet. We've all been on the wide receivers. What do you think about old Roy Dell coming from Alabama? I'm super excited for him, and also Lawrence Toafili, I think, is being slept on. We talked about the Louisville game, the defensive performances. How about that performance Lawrence Toafili put on against Louisville? I feel
They're playing Wildcat.
Woo!
Basically having to play quarterback and make things happen. You know what I mean? Selfless. That's what I love about, the group of guys that we have currently there in Tallahassee. Toafili is a Sunday player. He's a guy that's going to play on Sunday. Playing running back is one thing, but when you can play running back and you can catch, that's what they want in the National Football League. He has that skill set. And I love Coach Norvell. That's the thing that I love about Coach Norvell. Offensively, he has an offense that NFL coaches, they salivate over. When you have tight ends involved, right? Not tight ends that are always just split out wide as an extra wide receiver, but you have tight ends that are at the end of the line of scrimmage. They're involved in the running game, which is huge when it comes to blocking, right? So blocking is not an unfamiliar thing for them when they get to the next level. When you talk about having pro-like systems, 12 personnel, most collegiate offenses do not run 12 personnel. When you have 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers run back. Coach Norvell does that. 13 personnel with sometimes with 3 tight ends. Those are pro-like schemes offensively that pro teams love to see, because now when they go draft this guy that plays tight end, he's accustomed to being an end man at the line of scrimmage, either running routes or blocking, because they do that at Florida State. So when you factor in Toafili, not just running the football, but Coach Norvell puts him in the passing game, coming out of the backfield, catching passes, splitting them out wide. You know what I mean? Those are big necessities that are needed to excel in Sunday football. Then when you transition to Roydell Williams reminds me a little bit of Cam Akers. If you don't really know too much about Roydell Williams, go back and watch what he did against South Florida a year ago for Alabama. Now, South Florida was a very, very tricky ball game from Alabama, right, for college football fans that are watching this, because they had just benched Jalen Milroe. Their offense was atrocious at that time. They were on the cusp of losing to South Florida. Roydell came in and basically closed the deal for them to win. I mean, he was carving up big, much needed runs for Alabama and prevailed to them. And that was the defining moment for Alabama, because they could not afford to lose another game. Better yet, lose on the road to South Florida. And then when you factor in Roydell too, I think the year before against Georgia, he was carving up their defense as well. He has a burst that running backs have to have. When I look at running backs play as a fan and guys that I played against, I didn't want to see guys that had bursts, that had the speed to make you miss, enough power and leverage to run through your tackles. And if you're not playing with like right gap integrity, they can turn a 6-yard run into a 70 or 80. I didn't like those guys. Roydell has all of those attributes, right? Holmes, don't forget about Holmes as well.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, he's a speed demon. Holmes. So Cam, true freshman, Mike-I, was it Danzy? A track guy,
another speedster.
Yeah, from Tallahassee. Just the variety of backs that we have. And if I'm forgetting a name, please forgive me. But that's another thing when you talk about losing a guy like Trey Benson, who was a pro player at the running back position. Who takes over? Toafili is a guy who has experience. We know what he can do. But outside of that, because one thing I know about Coach Norvell and his offense is not just one guy he relies on as a running back. It's a few guys that will get opportunities. So who will have their hand in that in the pile to be able to do what's been called upon for them to do? But we got guys, and the spring, like wide receivers, is going to tell us a lot about that position.
Absolutely. Sam Singleton, as I think maybe the one name you mentioned, the sophomore, and he's got some speed too. Really excited to see what he does. But you mentioned tight ends in there, and You want to talk about what we did in the high school recruiting ranks in the portal the past 2 years. It's been beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris Thompson. Landon Thomas, despite what 247 says, he was actually, if he wasn't the best tight end, he was the second or third. He was number one in the nation when he flipped from Georgia. He decided not to go to the camps and stuff, and that's the only reason they dropped him, because he didn't show up to camps. But long story
he's still
short,
a top level guy in our book. That doesn't matter.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
sir,
Yeah.
without a doubt. But Kyle Morlock comes back for year 2.
Yeah, 6'6", 6'7".
He learned how to block last year, and I feel like he could have a monster year for this year.
Man, you know what I was just talking about tight ends and how Coach Norvell uses them in his offense. That's why it's important to have like 3 guys at that position. Most offenses now in college football, they're so, targeting to being a stretch offense where it just spread you out, not really utilizing tight ends. And our offense now, we utilize tight ends. You talked about Kyle and how he kind of grew as a blocker. And one thing I like about him, he might not be the best athlete at the tight end position. Heck, he wasn't the best athlete a year ago at the tight end position because, of course, we had Jaheim Bell. But he rarely dropped passes.
Sure-handed.
Yeah, he's a sure-handed guy. It kind of reminds me, not when it comes to measurables, just his catch radius and how good he is with his hands. Former guy I played against in the ACC at Florida State with Virginia, and we also were teammates in Pittsburgh, and Heath Miller, who was a first rounder.
Steeler. Yeah.
Never dropped passes. He wasn't the best athlete at the tight end position, but he had the ability to create separation, great blocker, and never drop passes. Kyle kind of gives me those Heath Miller-like vibes when it comes to his hands. And you talked about Landon. Man, these are pro-like necessities that we have in place in the way how the offense is orchestrated. You know what I mean? Which is important if you want to try to get to Sunday. If you play tight end, you want to try to get to Sunday and have a knowledge of what is expected of you as a professional tight end. Florida State is a place for you when you factor in how they utilize tight ends and just that success rate of tight ends getting an opportunity to do well in college, but also get an opportunity to go to the NFL.
I absolutely love it. Jen, I know I like to take up all the questions. Did you have anything real quick?
No, I think, just the Heath Miller mention just gave me that, PTSD from that Virginia game, right? Florida State, Virginia. He supposedly caught the ball right at the pylon. I don't know. I still don't believe it.
Everything.
I still live in that world. Sorry. Yeah.
I still have nightmares about that 09 game where Christian Ponder threw it to, I believe it was Dakota Fag in the back of the end zone, and it thought it was a touchdown. And I'm jumping up like through my nachos and everything.
And
incomplete.
Yeah.
No. But I'm going to throw the phone line up there. I'm not sure how much time you got. You know how we are. We'll keep on talking, but we appreciate the time being on here with us. We'll see if anybody has any questions or anything like that. We're definitely won't be too much longer on here, but it's been a whole lot of fun talking Florida State football in spring and tour duty. Of course, ACC play this year. You start out with Georgia Tech. I think that's another big part of this thing is just the fact the way the schedule lines up with 3 byes, with us being a sort of younger team. I can't help but being over optimistic. I feel like any less than 10 games, I'm going to be super disappointed, but it really it lines up. It really lines up for us.
No question. Once again, on the national stage, week 1, the last 2 years, we had a national opportunity against LSU. On a national stage, national TV. Florida State is a big-time headliner. You talk about playing against Georgia Tech, ACC foe in Ireland. This is a great moment, great opportunity for these players to do what Keon Coleman did a year ago. After week 1, he was a household name. You know what I mean? And he just rode that wave, continue to make plays. But these are the moments. This is why you come to Florida State. You know what I mean? And I remember I had an opportunity to talk to the guys 2022 first game against LSU, right? And I said, you guys are on national TV the very first game after only winning 5 games in 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I said, there are not a lot of universities that can have a letdown type year the previous year, and then the first game they say, y'all, we putting you on national TV. I said, the brand means something. I said, the brand means something. And even if you go back to 2022, that season, even after LSU, think about how many national televised games that ball club had coming off a down year of only winning 5 games. Correct me if I'm wrong. In 2021, they won 5, right? I think it was like 5 and 7.
Yeah, 5 and 7. Yep, 2021.
So the schedule makers decided to say, hey, Florida State, because you know how it is. Usually what we see on TV is a telling sign of how good you were a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
On a national stage. I told the guys, I said, man, that's why you come to Florida State, to be on this type of platform, to be under the brightest lights, because the brand means something. And it's your job to continue to bring more juice to that brand. And they did so. So now when you factor in, once again, 3 straight years in a row, everyone is going to watch Florida State go to work, put in work on a national stage. And I understand a lot of fans might not want to say this, but the very first game of the season for Florida State, College Game Day, is doing that game because it's a big deal.
Oh, we're going to be there. We can't wait. We got one of the fans is sending us the Kirk Herbstreit clown head. So we may put that up right here behind me. We'll see.
It's a big deal, man. So this is why I know you talk about recruiting, especially when it comes to the three schools, the 2 other schools that we're tied to because of our rivalries. They're not on TV as much as us. That's a proven fact. Even with us having a down year, as I go back to the 2021 season when we won 5 games, 2022, go back and look at how many national televised games Florida State was on compared to Florida and Miami.
Yeah, we turn around and play Boston College on Labor Day, right when we get back from Georgia Tech.
Yes.
I just realized that. Back to back.
So that's another national televised game. So when you talk about, from when I got recruited, coming out of high school, and granted Florida State had just won a national championship, so the spotlight was there. I wanted the opportunity to play on TV all the time. Like, I wanted to be on a major network. You know, I didn't want to be on something where nobody else is really watching. Like, no disrespect to some other networks, you know, that have college games, but I want to be on a national network where people are seeing you, where you don't have to go look and say, you know what, where is these games are playing? You know, is it like, that's not Florida State. You don't have that issue. You want to be a household name? Look at some of the guys that came to Florida State and took advantage of those household opportunities, and their name just is spread like a forest fire. That's why you come to Florida State. You just talked about our first 2 games on the national stage. What are we talking about?
Yep. And they're against Georgia Tech and Boston College. These aren't huge, brands themselves.
LSU is it's like playing against an LSU on the national stage. It makes sense. LSU is a powerhouse. Just won a championship a few years ago. Okay, we're playing against Georgia Tech and Boston College. Yep. Oh, but you know why they get this opportunity? Because they're playing against us. If Georgia Tech was playing against somebody else in the ACC, they wouldn't have been on.
Nobody's watching.
College Game Day wouldn't have been there.
No, that is what we know. And that's the one thing I find so funny about College Game Day. You know, Florida State didn't move the needle for the playoffs. They didn't want another team to get destroyed in the playoffs yet. Florida State is the one they used for their College Game Day in Ireland to move that needle, right?
One thing I say, Jen, and I don't want to go back down this rabbit hole.
I know.
But being a former player, I played football my entire life. I played football first time organized. I don't know, could have been second, third grade. First time I put on pads, and I didn't take them off until my career ended. You don't know what you're going to see until you actually play the game. And we start at the beginning of your show talking about the combine and how many guys from Florida State put on for the city at the combine. And remember, the first thing I said, that's usually a reflection of your season. Yep. So yes, we missed our quarterback, and our quarterback is overly important. Yes, the guys that filled in for Jordan Travis didn't look the best, but you don't know what would happen until you actually play the game. So you telling me in the college football playoffs, what offensive line unit for 4 quarters is going to neutralize, slow down for 4 quarters? Braden Fisk, Fabian Lovett, Jared Verse, 3 guys that probably would be top 4 round guys. And 2 of them have an opportunity to go first round. Not to mention Peyton, who is still at Florida State, who has the ability to get one-on-one opportunities because of the other 3 guys that I mentioned. But then you factor in the linebackers, Deloach, Tatum Bethune. Then you factor in the cornerback play, Jerry and Jones, Green, Bell, Shaheem, who I love as well. I love Shaheem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Hakeem Dent. The defense alone, like these are guys that are pro players that dominate, that play football the right way. So you're telling me, as the committee told all of us, well, they're not the same team. No question, we're not. But that doesn't mean they're not a team that can win ball games. Because the last time I checked, football is about finding ways to win. And if you have 2 things about college football that I know that will warrant wins, you don't have to have great coaching. If you have pretty good coaching or okay coaching, but if you got pro players, you're going to win ball games. If you have pro players and okay coaching at the bare minimum, you're going to win. You're going to win. So those 4 teams that made it to the playoffs outside of Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and was Ohio State there? No,
it was
Texas
and Alabama.
Yes. None of those teams have the guys defensively, the prospects that I just mentioned.
No.
Nope.
None. And then when you factor in our offense, our running back, 2 wide receivers, our tight end, I understand, like I said, it didn't look like you would want it to look because college football, say whatever you want to say, it's about style points.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. It's about who looks the best. I played in the National Football League. Mike Thomas tells us all the time, style points don't matter, man. We got to win. Luckily enough, they don't have a committee that decides who goes to the playoffs in the NFL. Think about that world. Because that would be a world that would consist of the blue bloods year in and year out.
Yeah, Eli Manning never had a shot. Eli Manning wouldn't have a Super Bowl.
I guess what I want to know is, do they just want Vegas to start picking the playoff members? Because that's kind of where it seems like it's going, who you think would win. But that isn't always happen because wasn't Washington like
an underdog?
Oregon, and Oregon was favored both games against Washington by 9. And then they won.
In the Pac-12. So who knows what game? That's why you got to play the game. And it was an unfortunate thing because
it really
we had a championship like team that did things the right way. And it sucks for those guys who came back to school to try to do that. And they did everything that they were told they were supposed to do, which is go undefeated. But that's why when you step on the football field, you attack every game like it's a game 7 because you just don't know.
Yes,
you just
and
don't
absolutely. Know. And as a defensive player, how do you feel now hearing that, just that Florida State wasn't good enough and all these things? When you've heard from all these people for so many years that defense wins championships, do you just want to look at them sometimes and go, don't ever say that again? Because I do, and I didn't play football. I mean,
it's annoying because I've had the ability to play football on every level. And I know how important it is when you're going against what most people feel like is the best out there and you find a way to win. You know what I mean? When you factor in, just like the NFL, for instance, right? When the road that Kansas City took to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl was a road that was unfamiliar for them because they weren't the favorites. They weren't the best team in the AFC like we've seen in years past. Yes, they took care of business the first round against Miami at home. It was frigid temperatures. We all knew Kansas City was going to win that ball game. But then to go to Buffalo, a thriving team that was playing some of the best football, to beat Buffalo, right? Then you go to Baltimore. At that time, many felt like they were the best team in the National Football League, especially coming off that Christmas night win against San Francisco. So they weren't the best team, but the game is meant to be played because you don't know what is going to happen. You don't know what is going to happen. So for us, for Florida State, for a group of people to sit here and decide, yeah, they won, but we don't think they can beat those other teams in a playoff scenario. See, the key word is we don't think. You don't think. So you know what? If we don't think, let's see. Because technically they have a right. But if you say, I don't think they could beat those other teams, well, let's see. Let's see. Because as I stated, the draft, the combine is a reflection of what these teams did on Saturdays. And I just named 7 players defensively that are all high-level pro players that all would have dominated by some degree against any of those offenses that they played. And our offense just needed to do what they needed to do, make timely plays. And yes, our quarterbacks, Brock, did not look good. I'm going to keep it real with you. No question. He didn't look good.
Yeah.
But every now and then a dog finds a bone.
Yep.
Yep. And Brock was hurt all year. He had no time to prepare. He only had a week to prepare. What would he have looked like in the playoffs had he had the chance to prepare? And another thing that the college football playoff committee doesn't know, couldn't have known, we were running extremely large rotations across the board for the entire team in order to be primed for the playoff. You saw the best version of that Florida State team, regardless of whether Jordan Travis was a quarterback in that game against Louisville. Would it have been better with Jordan there? Absolutely. But we never even got to see that Florida State defense ball out at a level because they were never given an opportunity by the coaching staff. And it never arose.
For the naysayers that are saying, well, what happened when y'all played against Georgia?
Yeah, there we go. We
never got to see it.
Yeah. I tell you this much. Y'all just watch the combine. Y'all just seeing what defenders would do. Just imagine those guys were in the lineup going against your starters. Like, this Georgia team was nice, but they weren't like they didn't have the prospects that are all getting drafted like we've seen in years past. Mims, heck of a player at the tackle position. I think he potentially has a first round type grade. But I'd love to see him and Jared Verse go toe to toe. Let me see who's going to block Braden Fisk, Fabian Lovett. Let me see. Let's talk about that. Which one of those guys is going to cover consistently Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman? Man, we had a bunch of guys that played against Georgia starters because, as I mentioned, the majority of their team is coming back. Carson Beck, who would probably be a first rounder potentially next year, came back. Lad McConkey played, who is a guy who probably could get drafted in the second round. We played against our guys that played against Georgia were a lot of guys that did not play a lot during the season. True freshmen, guys that didn't see a lot of time. And then for some of the experienced players that were available to play, they didn't play because they were injured, getting surgeries out of the way. So miss me with that, because for all the individuals that are sitting and say, well, look what happened against Georgia. And Kirby Smart know exactly. Like, man, listen, that's why he said what he said at the end of the game, because all our dogs did not play. And for whatever reason, I don't knock one kid that did not play. If you wanted to play, I applaud you. If you didn't, I understand. Because now you see what these guys are doing now? They're getting ready for their next career, which is the most important career, which is the NFL. So, they felt slighted because they didn't get a chance to go to the playoffs. So emotionally, they were distraught. So now it's like, I can go finish with my guys, or could I just go ahead and get ready for the next phase of my life, which is the most important phase? Either or, I don't have an issue with. As a former player, I don't, because I know one thing: when you get to the NFL and you get that first paycheck either wired into your account, or if you're old school like me, you get a paper check, it only has one name on it. One name. That's right. And these are things that you're going to have to continue to do. And you need to do so with a nice, keen mind and nice body, healthy and ready to go. And all these guys that didn't perform in the Orange Bowl, they got their mind and their body right to go out to ace the biggest job interview athletically that they will ever have.
And they did it, buddy. They damn sure aced it.
Yeah, I think I only have 2 points, and then George, I'm gonna let you go. So my first point is, anybody saying, well, Georgia players didn't opt out and Georgia players all played. I get your point here, but what I need for people to understand is Georgia's last game was a loss. Georgia's last game was a loss against their rival in a conference championship game. Florida State's was a win, and all their previous 19 before that were wins as well. Florida State went into that game against Louisville ranked number 4. My guess would be that coaching staff, rightly or wrongly, did not know that they needed to do style points. They were told win and you're in. So again, I'm so tired of hearing that. Nobody thought a number 7 team who had a loss to a 3-loss team would actually jump them and come up 4 spots. I totally, absolutely get all these points. My difference is, of course, Georgia was a little bit more motivated. Those kids had decided to come back because their last game was a loss. Of course they wanted to play in this bowl game. Of course they did. And I don't blame them. Yeah.
Most of their key players are underclassmen.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Look, can we do real quick? How many players did Georgia have go to the combine?
That's a very good question.
3
Milton,
or 4.
They had 2 running
3
backs.
or 4.
They had Mims, 2 running backs, Lad McConkey, Bullard.
Wait, I thought McConkey was coming back. Is he not?
Nah, Lad
I thought it was Bowers, and then okay.
They had 11.
They had 11. They had 11.
Dejon Edwards, Kendall Milton, Lad McConkey, Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint, Brock Bowers, Amarius Mims, Cedric Van Prangerdanger, Zion Logue, a bunch of names I haven't heard about.
Yeah, and
Tyke Smith, Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard.
But a lot of them played, yes. But I think that also has to come from the fact that their last game was a loss. They had something they wanted to put on tape. They wanted to do that. They wanted to be at this game. Another team did everything they were supposed to do, actually won all their games. Their last game was a win. They went into that night thinking, we're in, we win, we're in, right? They had no idea. This was such a huge, again, so I'm not getting into that point anymore. Again, but announcers, anybody else who talks about this 4 best teams, we don't think they could win. Apparently, they are not a fan of the Miracle on Ice. So you people are clearly anti-American because was America favored against the Russians? No, they weren't. And guess what happened on that ice? You know, I'm just saying.
Absolutely, yeah. No
it's
arguments
here. It's a good thing the college football committee wasn't picking the Olympic Games that year, is all I'm going to say.
Facts. Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace. Yeah. There's no doubt Florida State should have been in there, and we were completely vindicated in what happened afterwards. But one good thing about moving forward, unfortunately, that team took a bullet that Florida State will not have to take as long as Norvell's here, because everywhere, even across the board, when you look at the different players that they've theorized weren't good enough, they're all getting replaced by the dudes that so-called recruiting services say are worthy. And we put it on tape. We put it on the combine performance. If there had been 10 guys in the NFL combine from Florida State the year before, maybe Florida State comes in, because it was purely narrative and perspective driven. It was, it was a shame. There's no doubt about it. But this team going forward, the offensive line, I think, is the only thing we haven't talked about yet. Going forward into 2024, you want to talk about a totally different level. This offensive line, we kept everybody. Every single person has come back. It's basically the same offensive line we had in 2022. People have just came back and gotten better and better and better, and we have flipped those bottom spots. You get a guy, Terrence Ferguson from Alabama, to come in. You get a guy, Lucas Simmons, last year out of high school. You get a guy, Julian Armella, who's been being able to prepare for 2 or 3 years. Darius Washington's of the world, your Robert Scott's of the world, that had to come in and start and play all these snaps as true freshmen. That hasn't had to happen the past couple of years. So super excited to see the playoff team this year that occurs. And I think the offensive line is going to be the best one you've seen since at least 2014, in my opinion, this year.
We got a depth, I think, man. We probably have we have depth for sure, but I think we have maybe like 20-something offensive linemen, like 25, 26. Like
we've got a ton.
We can run a 4 deep based on the number that they have when it comes to depth. So that's another position where you talk about, working things out. A lot of guys, a lot of transfers that we got that have played high level football, man, just adding to our offense is important.
Yeah, you can really argue the top 10 guys. Like, you can really argue who's going to start. One of the guys I didn't just mention, you get Richie, what's his last name? Richie Leonard. From Florida. Mm-hmm. Like, I pretty much got him penciled in as a starting guard. I thought he was the best offensive lineman out of Florida. Alex Atkins wanted him coming out of high school. Okay, so let's flip over to the other guard. Well, who's going to play that dang thing? Is Jermaine Byers going to slide in? Is it going to be Terrence Ferguson from Alabama? He wasn't a starter over there, but he was getting better and better. And as far as a people mover, he's got that size we want. So that's a hell of a battle right there. You move inside, Maury Smith comes back for another year. You're talking about a guy that they keep bringing in dudes to beat him every year, and nobody beats him. He just keeps beating him out. I think the one hope I have for this year is that a Maury Smith, if he is hurt, is able to take a game or two off to actually get better. And he doesn't have to go out there to play because he's a stud. But he's got competition behind him. Darius Washington is a guy who's never been able to concentrate on one position. But bam, he goes out and wins second or first team all ACC. So you got Darius Washington at one tackle spot. Over at the other tackle spot, you've got a Robert Scott coming back. But there's a lot of argument there as far as who's going to play those. A lot of people think Jalen Early is ready to step up and take that leap. Some people think Julian Armella will get a chance to take up and step that leap. But yeah, super, super excited about the offensive line. I don't know if there's any particular guys you're really excited about, or if you have a take on them particularly.
No, not really. When it comes to, I think we have two positions that we kind of up in arms with. You know, you talked about the other guard, seeing exactly what happens with that, and maybe solidifying more depth at the tackle spot, preferably the left tackle. But one thing I don't question is, you know, Coach Atkins' eye for talent and knowing who the best player is. He's the best in the game, best in college football. He showcased that throughout his time in Tallahassee. And Coach Norvell clearly believes that as well. And he allows him to go ahead and have the final say-so on what happens at the position and who goes where. And the offensive line, when you factor in what we were watching offensive line-wise, 5+ years ago, it's night and day, which is a good thing.
It's really hard to believe that it's like the same guys. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was going to say, I think Bryant needs to head on out. So we will say thank you if there's anything else. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was expecting about 45 minutes to an hour. We almost got an hour and 20 minutes. So we really appreciate you joining us. And we got everything covered. We hit all the positions, got the combine, got the draft predictions. Is there anything you want to plug or anything before we get out of here? I know you got your podcast and all kinds of stuff coming up on CBS.
Yeah, all things covered, with my cousin Patrick Peterson, longtime NFL vet. Of course, getting ready for the draft, doing stuff with CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports as well. So, social media, my handle name is the same on all platforms, BMac_sports talk.
BMac_sports talk. Make sure you guys go follow him on all the platforms. Like he said, all things covered with Patrick Peterson. Go check that out. Thanks again, man. We really appreciate you, and we will catch you. You're obviously more than welcome anytime. And we will let you go, and we'll say goodbye to everybody, and we'll catch you next time, brother. We appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Man, that was awesome. BMac,
it was so fun.
He came ready to give some takes too, man. He went through pretty much the whole roster. That was an absolute lot of fun. I'm disappointed in you guys though. Like, this has been a couple weeks now. You got BMac. Y'all could have called in and asked a question. Y'all could have talked to the man, the former Florida State DB, the Pittsburgh Steeler legend. But maybe next time, guys. Y'all are too shy. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Guys, we're at like an hour and 18 minutes. We'll go for a few minutes, see if anybody has any questions. And then we will call it a day. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we get out of here? Is there anything you got on your mind that maybe we wouldn't talk about with Bryant? Anything funny, silly? It doesn't matter.
Let's see. Was there something? I think there was. If you'll give me 1 second, I think I had something, and now I just can't believe what I saw. And
well, we got a caller while you think about it.
All right.
So go ahead. You're live on the Renegade Rundown with George and Jen.
Hey, George, man. My name, I'm Nole Nation, the one that chat sometimes with you.
What's up, my man?
I just got one question about the Florida State leaving the ACC. What would be the purpose of them going to the SEC and for the SEC to get them? And do you think that the SEC would treat them like a stepchild if they were to go to the SEC, or do you think Florida State is ACC bound? That's all I had to say, man. I'm gonna hang up and listen to you.
No, we appreciate it, man. And I will go off on this one. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole thing. Yeah, SEC, I do think so. I think if you went to the SEC, if you stayed with ESPN, if that's the call you made, you would be risking going over there and getting treated the same exact way you've been getting treated for the past 20 years by ESPN. So I'm not for it. Do I think the SEC is going to take a bid, make a run at getting Florida State? Absolutely. Because ESPN is going to want to keep our brand, keep that product in their stable, within their networks. And of course, as everybody knows, ESPN has gotten SEC. They're not going to be on CBS anymore. It's going to be all ESPN, just like the ACC was, except for the SEC doesn't do business with Raycom. Their other stuff will be on, whatever, ESPNU, things of that nature, or their SEC network through ESPN. That was another one of the big mistakes ACC made. It's one of the most major ones we've talked about if you haven't watched any of our prior videos. But yeah, Nole Nation, as far as me and Jen, we're all Big Ten. We think the Big Ten is where it is, whether you learn about the different ways that Florida State's trying to finance this thing, the way they're trying to move forward as an academic school with academic research, medical research. They're looking to build a medical research facility on the campus, all the different things along the lines of becoming AAU certified, which is another big part of Big Ten. You don't have to be AAU certified to be in the Big Ten, but it's a big tip of the cap. It's kind of what they want their people to do, and it's something Florida State's aiming to do. Also, as far as the Big Ten, it's a lot more of a national conference, teams across the nation, your Michigans, your Ohio States, all the way over to your Oregons, all the way back over to the East Coast. And Florida State has always been a national product. They haven't just played all these teams in the Southeast and have these rivalries where they played Alabama 100 times and Kentucky 100 times. No, we were all about anytime, anywhere. So Bobby Bowden would go to Ohio State and play Ohio State. You go to Michigan and play Michigan. Go to Notre Dame. Go to LSU. Go to all these different places nationally. We've played in the Rose Bowl several times. We've been in the ACC going up north on the Atlantic seaboard. So we're a really national product. As far as going in the Big Ten, it would just be that much more of a national appeal. What is a team in the Southeast worth to Big Ten and Fox versus what is it worth to SEC? And there's no comparison there whatsoever. So yeah, we're all Big Ten, no SEC around here, but is it out of the realm of possibility if they offer $150 million or something a year? We'll see. We'll see what happens. But as of now, all my money's on Big Ten.
Agreed. I think what the SEC would need to do to get Florida State to not go to the Big Ten, they're not going to do, which would be like give them more money. I just don't see that happening. Maybe pay some of their exit fee. I don't see that happening either. So I don't.
What did you think about Clemson all of a sudden leaking reports and things out there that they're looking to get out all of a sudden? What do you think about that?
I think what that means is that they've been told they're ahead of Miami and that they've gotten a wink, wink, nudge, nudge that they are welcome somewhere. I think their quiet was that they had not gotten said wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And now they do. And now you see another team that is quiet still, Miami, which again, guys, nobody wants you. I hate to break that news.
Yeah, poor Miami.
It's very tragic. Maybe it was losing to Florida State again in another sport yesterday. I don't know.
So you think Clemson? You're talking about Big Ten? Is that what you're thinking? Is that what you're when you say ahead of Miami?
Big Ten. I don't know. It could be the Big Ten or it could be the SEC. I think both the SEC and Big Ten are going to be looking at Clemson and going to be looking at Miami and deciding which one makes more sense value-wise. I think that both bring different things to the table. I think Miami brings the academics. I think Clemson brings the relevancy. I think you have So many, and structure wise, Clemson is better. Clemson's run better. Clemson is, has their own stadium. They have a fan base that shows up to games. So I think you have, two things. And the only thing Miami has going for them is that they're AAU, and that, they're academically better than Clemson. That's all Miami has. That's legit. That's it. That is it. That's it. That's all you got.
Not for long, the way we're moving.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Miami, I think it's just more proof, the quietness from Miami, the Miami not being linked to literally anything unless ESPN is putting together these mock conferences, I think it's not surprising to see Clemson come out. I would have thought Clemson would have come out earlier. I think it means that Clemson's wink, wink, nudge, nudge isn't as strong. I think Clemson now is coming out in a move to see which one is going to work harder for them. I think Clemson honestly doesn't know which one they're going to go to, but I think they've gotten more positive feedback than they had a month ago.
Absolutely. I love it. I think it's just a matter of time, just another crack, and it'll be again, guys, April 9th is when the actual hearing begins in Florida. And March 22nd is the date in North Carolina, to where we're hoping it could get put all on Florida, either get dismissed or get a stay put on it. But those are your two dates. March 22nd will be our next big news, and then April 9th in Florida. So, man, who knows? If we could get a settlement before then, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think right now, you're going to have a lot of people trying to figure out which way, bribing clerks or bringing them coffee or doing which way to see how that judge in North Carolina is going to go. Because if they get any inkling that they are going to give it a stay, even a stay is a huge win for Florida State. Dismissal is obviously a huge win, but a stay is a win too. So you've got a 75% chance of it going your way. So we'll see.
Yes, we shall. And we'll have plenty of stuff on this. 22nd is actually, it's a good 10, 12 days away. So not this coming Sunday. That'll be a Friday show. So we'll look forward to that. Who knows if something crazy happens, if they actually dismiss it, maybe we'll go live. But I'm not quite so positive on Jen, but I hope she is right, because that would be so cool. Like literally, if they dismiss that thing, April 9th, a court date, they could have a discovery in Tallahassee. So with the possibility of with discovery being on the table on April 9th, there's a chance of a settlement. So keep your eyes peeled.
If they dismiss it and they bring it all to Florida, you're going to have a settlement, I would think, within 2 to 3 days after that. I'm not kidding. If they dismiss it and put that case in Florida, the ACC is not going to risk. Now, a stay, you're going to have maybe a settlement. It's not going to be, but I think if they dismiss it, you're going to see maybe that $100 million. That's what I think. They dismiss it.
All righty. Well, you heard it here first, and we will see you guys next time. We love you guys. It has been a whole lot of fun. Go Noles. Go Jen. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.
We can put a little Trub Life here. A little Carlos Williams highlight for you.
Bye.
First off, fuck Bama in the road time.